So I will begin the lecture because more people will join, and if this continues, I'll just be welcoming people for like half an hour. So, but it's great to see you all, and hopefully soon other people will join as well. Okay, so the first lecture that we did was more about all kinds of stuff about Baghdad. It was about like a lot of the present time stuff, like the culture now, the people now, what Baghdad is about, what it looks like, this kind of thing. And I want to do that as much as possible, but unfortunately, I can't really show you what Baghdad looked like in the past. And I want to talk about, mostly, I want to talk about the past. But just as a kind of segue, I want to first show you the people of Baghdad now, because a lot of those people are still the people of Baghdad in the past. They've continued their life in Baghdad, or people like them have come, have gone from Baghdad. And this might give you a feel for the cosmopolitan nature of Baghdad, because Baghdad for a very long time, for the entire scope of this lecture, was the center of the world and the capital of all Middle Eastern and Muslim, and not even just Muslim culture. So it's good to know a little bit about what people were talking about rather than just saying all these different names. So the first thing I want to do is share my screen. And this is always in the beginning such a mystery to me how to do this. So let's see. Wow, I don't I don't know if you can see what I'm seeing, but I don't even know what I'm seeing at the moment. Okay, that's
We can see your file window, and it's called Peoples
great.
of Iraq.
Yeah, can you see the photo now?
No.
No. Mm-mm.
Oh, okay, that's not good. Okay, we're close, but not all the way. I can see you all, and I can see my photo. Let's see. Um,
It seems like you perhaps may have just shared a specific window.
that's exactly what happened. Yeah, yeah.
So
And the
you may
trick
have to
is
click out
to,
of it and go back in to share your screen.
yes, yes, thank you. Okay, probably you can see the photo now,
Yeah.
hopefully.
Yes. A church. Yeah.
Yes, okay,
Or
great.
mosque.
Church is a church, yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, so I'm just gonna, these are just kind of in a random order, probably in alphabetical order. But this is what Baghdad consists of today, like now, and mostly in the past. I'll let you know if some of this stuff is newer. But in the beginning of Baghdad, let's say the beginning was about the year 750 to 850. This is a lot of what we'll be talking about in this lecture. And a lot of this stuff already existed. For example, Christians and Jews in the Middle East had been around for a very, very long time already, for hundreds and hundreds of years. And Islam was like the new, you could say religion, but also it's m much more than religion, like the new political system and religion and everything like that. But still, at this time, especially, there was tons and tons of Christian stuff, tons of Jewish stuff, and also other things that we might not even know so much about. But I'll give you some idea of what I'm talking about. So this is all this stuff again. This is Baghdad now. This is Baghdad today. This is an Armenian church, I believe, in Baghdad. So you have the Armenians, which probably would have been there in the creation of Baghdad as well, around the year, I think it was like 760 something. So this is the Armenian church, and oh, there we go. And these are Armenians today. These are Armenians of Baghdad. The Armenians are Christian, and they're a specific kind of Christian. And at the time, I believe they were, I could be wrong, I think they were Greek Christian. There were three different denominations of Christians in Baghdad. in the, you can say, the golden era of Baghdad, which is that first 100 years, first 200 years, something like that. There, I don't remember all the names, but there was the Greek church, there was the Nestorians, and the um, I almost have it. It's like on the tip of my tongue. It's like Dravidians or something like that. But there were these three branches, and they had to do with different ethnicities and as well as different belief systems in general, having to do with like what who Jesus really was, basically. But yeah, it gets really complicated really fast. So let's move on. These are the Assyrian people, and the Assyrians, for a lot of Western people, maybe they'll be really surprised that there is a huge Assyrian population that still exists. These are theoretically, these are the same people as the people that used to be part of the Assyrian Empire, as well as the people who controlled Babylon. Like these are really, really old people, and they have their own tradition. Here you can see the Assyrian flag is here. And they are one of the most connected people to America, to the US, in the Middle East. I would say even more than Kurds, much more than Kurds, who are also very connected to the US. But this is because number one is because they're Christian. I don't think there are any Assyrian people who are not Christian in the Middle East, especially. But number two, there's actually more Assyrian people living in the US than in the Middle East. They're a minority group that went through some hard times about 100 years ago during the breakup of the Ottoman Empire. And a lot of them fled and wound up in the US. So there's actually more Assyrians living in the US than there are living in their historical areas, which are mostly in Turkey and Iraq and Syria itself as well. But so yeah, you can see like their style. A lot of them are wearing very American style clothes, but you can also see the style of they have their own culture as well. So yeah,
So, Zachariah,
um,
I've
yeah.
never met somebody who calls themselves Assyrian. Are they in a certain part in the US?
Yeah, that's a good question. I met one person one time in an Arabic class when I was going to San Francisco State University, and she was Assyrian. And I asked her, like, we were talking about ourselves, and she said that she's Assyrian and there's no Assyrian language classes. But she wants to get back to her roots and learn her language. There's different names to call it, but it's basically Aramaic. It's like the language that Jesus spoke. But you can call it different things. For example, Syriac
Oh.
or Assyrian sometimes. And sorry, Sada.
Yeah, there are so many Syriac people in the Mardin also. The Assyrian and Syriac people are the same things, do you think? They are the same nation?
Yeah, that's
They
a really good question because it sounds
because
similar.
they
You have Syrian, like the country, Syria, but then you have Assyrian. You
no,
just put an A in front, and Assyrian
no.
is
I don't
very, very
ask
different.
about this Syria country. I'm asking about there are so many Syriac people in the Mardin in the uh, in this area, and they speak Syriac language, and they
Yes,
claim that their language is the language of Jesus Christ,
exactly.
and they accept the Christian, the first nation that accept the religious of Christian.
Yes, yes, this is also true. Yeah, everything you said or they said to you is correct. They are I, they're basically them and the Armenians and also the Georgians can also say this, that they are the first nation of people that accepted Christianity in their words. And yes, these are the Assyrians in Mardin are these people, but of course, in different like they have their different groups of different kinds of Assyrian people. But the Assyrians that are in Mardin are like original Assyrians. A lot of Assyrians now had to run away from Syria because of ISIS or because of war and things like this. But the Assyrians in Mardin, which is in like you could say southern Turkey, something like this, they have been there forever. Like they're
Yeah, yeah,
very original people. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
But
and yeah,
it,
they are one of the first
and
people.
also they are the native of this area.
Exactly, exactly. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So they're a very interesting people, a very proud. They're very proud of their heritage. But because they're a minority in the Middle East, they've had difficult times as well. Even until now, even now they have difficult times in Iraq and Syria also. And we will talk a little bit more about Assyrians and Syria too, very soon actually. So these are the Assyrians. In Baghdad, there's an interesting population of I don't know what to call them, but when in my research, they were called Black Iraqis. And they're basically people that, for one reason or another, sometimes because of slavery, but like a different version of slavery than we would think of slaves coming to the New World. But still, like some version of slavery, they came to Baghdad, or sometimes they were soldiers. Like there's many different reasons, but they have their own thing a little bit in Baghdad, and they probably at the golden age of Baghdad, the age that we'll talk about, they definitely existed in that time as well as a lot of times as slaves, to be honest. Maybe slave soldiers or slave things having to do with the military, which is very common in the Middle East in the old times. But yeah, they still exist to this day, these Black Iraqis. And in the Middle East, there's not this stigma so much of like, it's not like the US where there's a history of suppressing Black people. So they're not like a marginalized group or something like that. Um, but yeah, they exist and they have their own kind of culture, their own history, but they're totally native Iraqi people by now. What is this? Oh yeah, these are some Christians. I don't know if these people are Assyrian, if they're Arabic, if they're Armenian, if they're Circassian. There's many different groups of people who are Christian in Iraq and also in Baghdad. But this is a typical look of Christians in church. And I don't know. I think this was the only photo I had that I could find of this Kurdish people. And there's a very special kind of Kurdish people that live in Baghdad. And they're very interesting because maybe I can make this a little bigger. They're very interesting because they are Shia. They are not Sunni, which is most Kurds are Sunni, but they have their own kind of little tiny neighborhood, little tiny history, and they're a Kurdish people of Baghdad, and they're kind of like native to Baghdad. Which, if you know about Kurdish history or Kurdish people, it's very unique to have this. But I laugh because this is not how most Kurdish people would look. This is like a very stereotypical image of some Middle Eastern guy. But most Kurdish people look like not all this stuff with the hats and everything. But yeah. So there's also this Kurdish population living in Baghdad. This was part of some other idea I had of a lecture, I think. But basically, this happens a lot. This happened a lot in Baghdad's golden age. This happened a lot after Baghdad's golden age. And what this is there's probably a special word for it in Arabic, but In English, this would be a pogrom, which is where everyone got mad at the Jews, and they basically went to the Jewish neighborhoods and like killed or looted or this kind of thing. And this happened from the beginning of Baghdad's creation until now. And it's not just about people fighting or not fighting. I don't know what like what's the right word? I don't know. It's not about people attacking the Jews. It's about people attacking each other. One minority group attacking another minority group, or majority attacking the minority. And I mean, it's a pretty jarring picture, but this is what happens a lot in history, especially in the Middle East, especially in Baghdad. And there's very few images of this. So I thought this was in some way important to show because I want to show what this actually looked like when people became angry and inflamed and want to punish one minority for some perceived wrong of their own bad situation or something like that. And I think it's really interesting. You have the government officials looking from the balcony, and women as well. And then you have just the normal people, but they're carrying their kitchen knives, or this guy has like a chair leg or something. So as I talk about this, I want you to understand that this is real stuff that happened. And this is a photo of this real thing that happened. I'm guessing this would be in the either 40s or 60s. This happened with the Jews. And here are some Jews of Iraq. So something in with our eyes, we can see something interesting here. We have like the quote unquote modern. By the way, can you guys see my face or not? You can see my face. Okay, good. Oh, you're all quiet. Okay, yes. So we have the quote unquote modern people, modernized people, which you see here, and the Jews, especially in Baghdad, in the modern times, wanted to modernize themselves. But there's also the old style, which you can see with the older people here, and they were a lot of the older Jews were totally against this modernization. Oh, and this guy as well. So you can see the difference. Like possibly this guy are the same age. Certainly this guy and this guy would be there's like not much age difference, but you can see the difference. You have the native cultural traditional style, and then you have the modern style, which is like Western style. And I'm sure this happened all the time in Baghdad, where you had the old version and then the new version, but the older generation was not at all for this modernizing way. Um, but another thing that I think is interesting is to that in our eyes, uh, like I don't really see the difference in these people's in the old traditional style as if they were Muslim or Shia or Sunni or if they were Kurdish or if they were Christian at this time. Like there wasn't so much difference between the people, but there were differences between their dynasties, their families, their business, their what do you call it? Their what they did for a living, and also their own family histories. Those would have been different. But walking down the street, there really wasn't that much difference. Everyone was like a Baghdadi in one way or another. So yeah. Like if you saw this guy today, I don't know if you'd think he was Jewish. You might think he's like from Saudi Arabia or something. This is another group that I will talk about as much as I can, which is maybe one or two sentences. These are basically like in with a very big grain of salt or very big caveat. These are gypsies of Iraq. Um, I can't see the name because there's a sign blocking it. But yeah, they're basically kind of what what the role of gypsies play in the US or in Europe, these people played in Baghdad. And you can see them here dancing, maybe dancing for money. They did a lot of handicraft kind of stuff, probably working with metal, just that kind of stuff. And they also were a big group in Baghdad. I've actually met a derivative of these kind of people in Turkey one time as refugees. They were it was a very interesting experience for sure. So this here is a Kurdish neighborhood in Baghdad, the same Kurdish that I showed before. And if you see here, if you've ever lived in the Middle East or know anything about the Middle East, does anyone know what this is? Can you see my mouse, by the way?
Yes, we can.
Okay, good, great.
Imam Ali.
Does anyone know what this is?
I think it's about Shia.
Yes, yes, exactly. This is as far as my knowledge goes too. It's about Shia. I don't want to say this is actually a very important image for Shia, and I'm a little reluctant to say maybe
Ali,
it's this, maybe it's that, because it
Imam.
would be like not good to Shia people, I think. But yeah, very important image for Shia. And if you go to any Shia neighborhood all across the Middle East, you will see stuff like this. You'll instantly know it's Shia. Like when I lived in Lebanon, instantly I knew when I was in the Shia neighborhood because I would see this. Or even when I lived in Izmir, Turkey, there were at the time it was many Syrian refugees, and a lot of those Syrian refugees were Shia. They're running away from ISIS, who were Sunni. And so I would see these, and instantly you know, okay, Shia, and you understand a big part of it. So if you're going in this neighborhood, this is actually the Shia Kurdish neighborhood. And yeah, so this is a little bit of Baghdad for you, Baghdad today. These these are the Kurdish people. This is exactly. I think this is a very good image of Kurdish people. You have the modern style and kind of like enjoying life a little bit. You have the nationalism for Kurds. The Kurdish nation is very important, like the Assyrians as well. And you have the mix between like the traditional style where you have this scarf and there's also a lot of traditional clothes. And then you have the modern style as well. It's like a mix. And I noticed this a lot with Kurdish people. So, yeah, and there are many Kurds in Baghdad and who have lived in Baghdad throughout the centuries. I believe these are the last two Jews of Iraq, according to some article I read. And you can see the style. They are not wearing like clothes like that I'm wearing right now, or that anyone else here is wearing, I think. But they're wearing typical Baghdad clothes, and I think it's interesting to see. Like if you were walking in Baghdad, you would never see these people and say, "Oh, these are Jewish for sure." Like there's nothing. They just look like normal Baghdadi people in a normal Baghdadi house. I believe this is a Mendian church. And wow, if I had time, which I don't at all, if I had time, I would tell you all about the Mendians. Maybe there's another, yeah. So these are the Mendians. These are I don't even know what to call them, but they're kind of like a branch, a very old branch of Christianity. And they follow John the Baptist more than they do Jesus. And there's lots of other differences too. And I wish I could get into it because it's fascinating. But these are very old people, and they're some of the first Christians, and they're still around, I believe. Maybe they might have been harassed too much in one program or another, but they're still around in the Middle East. I'm not sure if they're still around in Baghdad or not. But this church is. This is a Mandean church in Baghdad. These are Palestinians. Baghdad has a Palestinian population as well. And the Palestinians are there obviously from the war. 1948 war with Israel, and they couldn't come back to their homes in what's now Israel. So I think they also represent a history of displaced people that lived in Baghdad. So the modern version would be Palestinians. But throughout history, there were many people like Palestinians, and they would have lived in Baghdad because Baghdad was the center of everything. So, like, of course, they would have lived in the main city and made a livelihood there. And yeah, so here's an image of Shia. Uh, these are Shia people praying. I forgot what mosque this is, but this is in Baghdad. It might actually be a shrine and not a mosque. I'm not, no, I think it's a mosque. But yeah, Baghdad now is very, very Shia. And we will talk about from the beginning, it was also part Shia and part Sunni. And it's always been that way. At the moment, it's much more Shia than Sunni, interestingly. You can see that here, actually. So in 2002, you can see this, it was kind of mixed, and there were, these would be like Sunni people. But then over time, it became more, well, I don't know. I guess it still looks half Shia, half Sunni. I believe now it's more Shia than Sunni, though. But yeah, I think that's enough photos for now. Does anyone have any questions or comments or anything?
Yeah, why did the why are there so few Jews left in Baghdad?
They were kicked out in different times. Their life was made very hard to live in, starting with the creation of Israel, basically. It's the story for the entire Middle East, uh, except with exception a little bit to Morocco. Pretty much all the Jews were persecuted after Israel declared um, their country, their nation state, because they were considered uh, like spies, basically. And they had a lot of money in Baghdad, not everywhere. There's a like Jewish Kurds I studied in other parts that were kind of poor, but in Baghdad, the Jews had a lot of money, and Iraq was a new country and they needed money, and they basically were did a lot of things to steal it from the Jews and blame a lot of political problems on the Jews. And yeah, and this happened in every country, in Egypt, in Algeria, name any country in the Middle East. And there used to be huge populations of Jews, and they all fled to Israel, or they fled, but also they escaped, I would say. Like they were heavily persecuted, and many were killed. And the ones that survived managed to get to Israel between around in the 1940s to around the 1960s. So a lot of these Jews that lived in Baghdad, they actually lived mostly in London, but or there's a huge community in London, but also in Israel as well.
Thank you.
Hmm. Any more questions or comments? All right. So I want to show you a little bit about the Middle East, about the creation of Baghdad. Why was it created, and how was it created, and how did the system, how did these people get here, and things like that. And I didn't know where to start. So I decided to start at some ridiculous year, like, yeah, the year 1000 BC. Baghdad was created in around, let's just say 660 or something like that. Maybe 670. We'll see in a second. But I feel like when you see this history, the things that we'll talk about will make a lot more sense. So I'm just going to play this and skip through it really fast. But basically, you have the Assyrian Empire here, and this is the people that we were talking about before. They were called the Assyrians, and I mean, they still are called the Assyrians, but this is when they had their own empire here. and there was also Babylon. And this is after a time when all the other countries and empires collapsed. And I want to show you where Baghdad would be. So here's the Tigris and Euphrates. So I believe Baghdad is somewhere like oh, maybe down here a little bit more. Where these two meet would be Baghdad. It's very close to Babylon, but it's not the same place. Babylon is a maybe 50 miles away, 100 kilometers away, something like that, than Baghdad. But the same idea, it's between these two rivers where they touch really closely. And I want to show you what happened, basically. Maybe we can skip through a little bit. So you have these different empires, and as you can see, these empires are becoming bigger and bigger, their reach. Like here, these are what we'd call the Persians now. This is the first time you can see such a huge expanse of land being taken, being controlled. It had never happened before in history where it was this much land. This is really important to understand because it's because of the Persians that Baghdad later could be created because the people later could take this huge piece of land that the Persians took and just kill the king of the Persians, and then they control all that land. At this time, it would have been oh, it restarted. At this time, it would have been like Alexander the Great that took all this. So here, this is the Greek territory that was basically taken because of Alexander the Great. And that Persian, how can I say, the Persians weren't gone exactly, but they were controlled by the Greeks. And now the Greeks had the same area that the Persians took. So from that point on in history, you could just take this huge chunk of area over and over again. So after the Greeks came the Parthians, which were like the Persians part two or something like that. And over time, you can see, where are we? So very soon the Romans are going to come. So here's now the Romans came. And from this point forward, this is where we're getting towards the creation of Baghdad and why it was created. Because you have these two superpowers. You have Rome, which also includes Egypt and what's now Turkey, even Armenia, these kind of places. And then you have, let's just call them the Iranians, because they come in different forms. One form was the Persians, another form was the Parthians, another form was the Seleucids, no, not the Seleucids, the Sassanids, another form is the Seljuks, things like that. But you can see, you have these two superpowers, and it goes and goes. They fight each other forever. And at one point, they fight each other so much that they kind of make each other weak. So we're going through hundreds of years of history now. It's still Rome, it's still the Iranians. Now they're the Sassanids, but they're basically the same Iranian group of people. And we're going to go another couple hundred years in history. And just keep this in mind. You have the West, which is Rome, and you have the East, which is Iran, let's say. And then something happens which had never happened before in history, which is you get this other group. It's a third group. And it was totally unexpected for this to happen. But you have the Romans and the Iranians fighting each other to the point where they're just really weak. And then you can start, you see something here. Something is going on here. And if you look at the year, it's 627 here. Look what happens in just a few years. I think in like 10 years, suddenly this happens. And these are the Muslims. And this is something completely different. They're coming from the middle of the desert and they're taking over these huge empires. They're fighting against the Romans and they're fighting against the Sassanids, which are like the Iranians. And very, very quickly, they just take I'll go a little forward. They just take all of the Iran, basically. And long story short, they become these people, the Umayyads. So now there are no more Persians. There are no more Iranians. It's gone. It's taken over by these desert people. And Rome is basically holding on, like Eastern Rome, the Byzantines, are just barely holding on. They're just barely able to uh, survive. They lost Egypt to these Arab peoples, and yeah, and now it's a completely different political landscape. This is something very, very new. And in this time, many interesting things happen. But the important part is actually what happens here, which is an area, I forgot the name of it. But basically, it's like Turkestan and Afghanistan, the stands, maybe a little bit of Kazakhstan, like this kind of area. And the Umayyads, they really stretched themselves really far to get all the way to Afghanistan, like from Mecca to Afghanistan. And also they were all in Egypt and even further in North Africa. And it was too much. They stretched themselves too far. They became too corrupt, and they basically controlled all these different people. If you remember, these were Iranian peoples, and now these Arab people are controlling them, and they're not letting them have power. They took all the power, and it's just these Arab people controlling all of this. It's not like they're giving this power to the native peoples, basically, or the old power systems that worked at the time, and it just kind of broke it. So what you have, this is the year 742. So basically, from the beginning of the Umayyads taking over, I think this was called Khorasan, taking over Khorasan. You had all these people in Khorasan and all throughout, especially that weren't Arab people. Um, I forgot the word. I haven't lived in the US. I haven't lived in a native English speaking country for like 10 years, so my English sometimes gets a little bad. But anyway, they really didn't like resented. They resented living under this system. And I think now I'm going to go to my website here. And by the way, I'll send you a link to this website. This has a lot of the history of what I'm talking about. Um, I believe I have a map somewhere of Khorasan. Maybe it's in my pictures. Yes, okay. So to give you an idea of what happened now is you had Khorasan, or Khorasan, interesting. So here you had these people from the Hijaz and maybe other Arab tribes. And look, they're going all the way to oh, this is the Abbasid. Okay, this is a different caliphate. But it was very similar to this. And you had people here that were by the way, can you see my screen?
Yes.
I can't
Yes,
hear
yes,
anyone. Yeah? Okay, good.
yes.
Okay, great. So you had people in Khorasan, and they wanted to just completely topple the Umayyads, topple the empire that was created and took over their empire, took over their lands, and they didn't like that now these people all the way from over here with a different language, culture, kind of different religion. Um, they wanted their control over their lands. So they did become Muslim, and that was actually the downfall of the Umayyads. So all of these peoples, they all became Muslim, and this united them, and ironically united them against their ruler as well. So because the Umayyads controlled all this territory, they could just easily, like as famous as perfume dealers, but also as all kinds of other tradesmen and even like lawyers and like people like this, people that would travel a lot. Um, they would go all over, especially in the areas of power like Damascus, which would be, I don't know, oh, here it is, which would be here. And they would just travel all the time for about 100 years. And as they traveled, they would make networks of like underground networks of rebellion. So they set up this, they spent decades and decades, generations, setting up this network of rebellious people that at the right moment they would all rise up and throw away the yoke of the Umayyads. So, and it all started with Kurdistan, but also there was a, I don't know if it's going to show. Oh yeah, here, great. So there was also this city here, Kufa, and Kufa was like a center of, it was like a Persian center of rebellion. And I believe a lot of them were Shia as well, whereas the Umayyads were Sunni. And even before we get the creation of Baghdad, uh, there's already this conflict between the Shia and Sunni, this like power conflict, where the Shia were more coming from the east, and the Sunni were more coming from this area, the west of the Middle East. So, but the this Kufa place was very important because it was a lot closer to Damascus than Kurdistan was, than like Afghanistan, basically. So, yeah. So the rebellion, it began in this city. Maybe I can make the picture bigger. Yeah. So it began here. And this is in a country called Turkestan. And the city was called Merv, I think. And it was a big like Silk Roads kind of city. The reason why it's like this now is because of the Mongols. There's just nothing left of it at all, which is later on, you'll see that that will happen to Baghdad as well. But this city, it never recovered from the Mongols. But at the time, it was a huge, beautiful, powerful city. And all at once, everyone uh, went from the underground network and made themselves known by carrying a black flag. And this is the flag of the Abbasids. And I don't know if you saw before, but the map that I was showing before was a map of the Abbasid Caliphate. So that's like you can see what's going to happen. But yeah, basically the rebellion started in this Khorasan area in Merv. Maybe I can come back to you all. Okay, so it started in Merv in Khorasan in Turkmenistan, or Turkestan, I don't know, someplace, Turkmenistan, in Turkmenistan.
I
And
think it is Turkestan.
Turkestan? Turkestan
Yeah.
is actually a city in Kazakhstan, but Turkestan did exist and was part of this, I think. But in today's countries, I believe it's Turkmenistan, but I could be wrong. Could be Turkestan. So yeah, so they had their rebellion. Uh, they all this underground stuff became different militaries, different what would you call it? I don't know. You get the idea. A lot of people rose up to fight, and they fought under a guy. Maybe I'll go back to sharing my screen. I'm terrible with names, so let me see if I can share again. Okay, I'm going to specifically share this screen. Hopefully I won't forget that it's only this one. So they all, I believe this guy, Abu Muslim. So I believe, yeah, I believe they all fought under this guy, Abu Muslim. And he basically swept across the corrupt and broken landscape of the Umayyad Caliphate, or Umayyad Empire, depending on your vocabulary. But these were actually called caliphates, and they had their own system. But you can think of it like an empire. He swept over that, and he basically made it to Corfu, Kufa. He made it to Kufa, and in Kufa, this became like the base. And if you can see here, oh wow, it's so tiny. If you can see here, Kufa was very close to Baghdad. And this was part of the reason why Baghdad was created where it was. But basically, he created the home base in Kufa. He eventually attacked Damascus and took out the Umayyads. And it wasn't him, though, that became the caliph. Let me try to fix this. It was, who was it? Safa. He went by another name as well. But anyway, there was a new caliph, and was it? Yeah, okay. So yeah, but basically now the first real empire of the Muslims were the Umayyads. And now it's the new version. Now it's the Abbasids. And they were also Sunni, like the Umayyads, but they used the animosity that the Persians, that the Shias had against the Umayyads. So you had these Sunnis working with the Shia to take over, to overthrow a different Sunni caliphate, and it worked. And unfortunately for the Sunnis, unfortunately for the Shia, the Sunnis that took over, the Abbasids, they very quickly made sure that the Shias didn't take the power, and they suppressed a lot of the Shia, and they became like a Sunni caliphate, basically. There were battles fought, Damascus fell. Something that I think is really interesting is the reason I don't have a lot of photos of these caliphs and famous people, and I'm showing coins. Like if you look, if you scroll through here, oh, I guess this guy, this is actually a later picture, drawn later. But a lot of these caliphs are just coins because it was very like in bad form to show your face, like or to show the form of any person under Islam in that time. So that's why, like when I say Al Mansur, I'll show a picture of the coin because the coin is really the only symbol left of to symbolize Al Mansur. This is maybe a portrait of him or even his signature or something like that. So yeah, long story short, Al Mansur became caliph, and he at first controlled Kufa, but the problem with Kufa was it was a great place to have a rebellion, but that's because the city was always rebellious and they were always like kind of crazy and had this like crazy rebel energy there. And there was no way he could make his capital of the, I'll show this picture again of the whole, can I? Oh, here. So this was the whole Abbasid Caliphate, and you can't control all of this stuff while your home is having a rebellion, having like the 100th rebellion in a row. So it wasn't working out in Khufu. I believe the story was the Persians wanted to make Al-Mansur a god. And he said, no, that's crazy. Like we're Muslim. We believe in God. I'm not God. And so the Persians, they had a rebellion to make him a god. And he didn't accept, so they had another rebellion against him because they didn't accept their decision to make him a god. And it just made him realize that it's not at all feasible to have the capital in this city. And he couldn't have it in the original place. The original capital of this area was usually Damascus. But he couldn't have it in Damascus because you still had the old guard there. You still had the shadows of the Umayyad people there. Like you couldn't really. He wanted something new because this was supposed to be like a not corrupt version of having an Islamic empire, and he wanted everything to be kind of like utopian and new and something like the old world is gone now. And now let's have something new. Let's have something different. The Romans are broken. The Persians are gone. Let's have the word of Muhammad and Islam, and this is like the right way forward. So I'm curious, how many of you were in the last lecture? Because I talked a little bit about the creation of Baghdad.
I was, Tatiana.
Tatiana, okay, cool, yeah. So I'll be a little brief because some of you already know the story, but basically the Al-Mansur, Al-Mansur, he wanted to create a utopian, like perfect city. And what is more perfect than a circle? Like a circle has no broken edges, it has no points. Like a circle, you can just go around forever. It's very like sacred geometry. So he had this idea to create a city as a circle. And so he created this. This is a plan of the city, I believe. And what I'll show you some other pictures too to get the idea, to give you the idea. But this is basically the palace where he lived, and it was also a mosque, I think. And this was all green space. It was like a huge, huge garden park area. Then you have the marketplaces and where people live. In these are different walls. And then you had a moat around Baghdad as well. And it was all planned. Like there was nothing there before. It was basically desert and it was basically sand. And they decided to make the capital of this huge empire from scratch and make it completely new. So unlike a lot of the Middle East, Baghdad is one of the newer cities. Like for example, Aleppo. Aleppo goes back 8,000 years. It goes back to the very beginnings of civilization. And a lot of these Middle Eastern cities, Mardin is one of those places as well. It goes back to the like way before history, and you can only know about it because of little pottery shards that are super old. But Baghdad is not one of those cities. Baghdad is not an ancient city. It's a relatively new city from like kind of post-Roman times even, which I think is interesting because we think of Baghdad as some very, very old historic place, but it's one of the newer places of the Middle East. And oh, one more thing. So the way that it was created was they took cotton, like balls of cotton, I'm imagining, and they dipped them in some kind of petrol, like it's Iraq. They have petrol coming out of the ground everywhere. So they dipped it in some kind of petroleum kind of thing. And they made the entire layout of the city on the sand out of these cotton balls soaked in petroleum. And then they lit it on fire. They lit all the cotton balls on fire. And it created this plan, like on the ground plan in ash. And then they were able to dig the foundations and things like this from this plan that they made out of this burnt, I don't know, out of like ash. But I think it's really a really good symbolism because Baghdad many times returned to this state of being just ash on sand. So it was created in fire, and many times it was also destroyed in fire, in water, and many other things as well. So here's another, this is an artist rendering of Baghdad, what it might have looked like. No one really knows, there's no like illustrations from that era of what it actually looked like. But this was based off of descriptions and things like this. this is what people think it might have looked like year one of Baghdad. What I disagree with is that there's no cloth. Like you can see here um, houses and things like that. And these square things, these would be courtyards. Like you can see these trees growing in the courtyards. So you have maybe this would be like one of the main streets here. And then if you go inside the house, it's like a house that goes around and in the center is a big courtyard where you maybe have a fountain and you'd have trees and lots of plants. But what you don't see here is cloth coverings, which I'm sure existed because Baghdad was very hot. It's not like they were going to be walking around just in the sun, beating down on them all the time. So probably this would have looked a lot more colorful with cloth and maybe like leather and things like this, shading the streets so people could walk without getting sunburned all the time. But this is the basic idea. So you have a moat around it here, and then you have like these walls, and each layer is like a different it's a different social status, but also a different neighborhood. And so like maybe if you were a normal person like you and me, probably we wouldn't be able to get to this layer. Like they wouldn't allow us through. I think this was the original idea. Um, but because this everything that you're seeing here was destroyed, no one knows exactly no one knows the specifics about Baghdad because even their history was destroyed as well. But people can take a lot of educated guesses about what it was like. What you don't see here, what might surprise you, is that Baghdad was actually a city of canals, like Venice. So if we have time, maybe I'll show you a little bit some other renderings of Baghdad of this time. And there's just canals everywhere. The main arteries of Baghdad were canals, not major streets like this. And this canal system went far beyond Baghdad. It went, maybe I can show you on the map. It went to a place called Sama. Um, But these canals were really, really important because if you can remember, Baghdad was between the two cities of the Tigris and Euphrates, and they had canals that connected these two rivers, the Tigris and Euphrates, and they had canals that connected these two. So you could go from the sea or from the mountains of what's now Turkey, you could go from any direction and wind up in Baghdad through water even though Baghdad was kind of a deserty, arid kind of place. Maybe I can search for this place. Ah, here, Samara. So this is Samara. If we have time, we will talk about this area more, actually. But the canals system that was in Baghdad reached all the way to Samara, like, or maybe Samara, something like that. Maybe Rosalind, you know how to pronounce this better than me.
Do you mean Samara?
Ah, Samara. Okay. Yes, I mean Samara. So, yeah. So how many? This is what, like 100 miles or something like that. It's really, really far, and they had canals that could reach like if you were a worker in Samara, you could go to work to Baghdad in the way that we take freeways or autobahns today. But yeah, in this artist rendering, you don't see that. I don't even know if the artist really understood that Baghdad was kind of like Venice. You wouldn't imagine because it's in the middle of the desert. But these canals were immensely important. And they are almost completely gone. There might not be any canals in Baghdad today. I'm not sure. But if I can click this picture, this is a canal in Baghdad from who knows when. Um, I'm guessing 100 years ago or something. And these type of boats that you see here, these are the same type of boats that would have been in the same canals of Baghdad when Baghdad was created. Um, and even thousands of years before, even the Sumerians used these boats to get around. And you can, with a pole, you steer the boat because the canals are not super deep, just like in Venice. Like it's the same idea in Venice. So Baghdad was full of these canals, and the canals were the just like maybe for Los Angeles, the freeways are the most important like part of the city, like most important part of the infrastructure of the city. The canals were like that for Baghdad. But the canals could be very fickle, like they could flood, or there could be no water, or they could get like full of mosquitoes and make diseases. Like there were many, many problems with having canals, but it still worked out well enough for Baghdad to rely on these canals all the time. But it really did create a lot of problems, especially with floods. Floods was a really big problem for Baghdad because of these canals. So I'm trying to see how long did it take. So they started work on Baghdad on July 30th, 762. And this was because of a Jewish astronomer that was very famous at the time said this is the date it should be created on because of all of this sacred mathematics and uh, like holy. This is the most holy sacred time that you could begin something. So Al Mansur listened to him, and that's how we know on this exact day, July 30th, 762, Baghdad was created. And after only about 4 years, it looked like this, like it was completed, and it didn't stop being created after that. Like it grew very, very quickly past these walls here. And this is definitely not a historically accurate map of Baghdad. This is from a video game that's set in Baghdad in this time, in the golden age of Baghdad. But this gives you an idea of what would have happened after it grew past the walls. Um, I think the video game is mostly set in the West and not the East, but it would have grown in the East as well. And the East was also very important on the other side of the Tigris River here. And yeah, you can see in the game, they do show the canals a lot more. I can't zoom up, but they show the canals more. But you have the ringed city, and then you have all the stuff that's made outside of the ringed city. And that happened very, very, very quickly, like within just a few more years, because it was the capital and it was the center of the Islamic world. And the Islamic world was one of the most powerful, it was like a superpower. It's like America is today. It's like really, really strong. Um, Definitely stronger than Rome or these whatever was left of Rome at the time, or the whatever was going on, Charlemagne, the Holy Roman Emperor, like this kind of stuff. This was where all of the this mathematics and the science and things like that was going on. So I think oh, there's one more thing that I think is interesting. Uh, I'll go back. I think oh, there's all kinds of interesting stuff, but yeah, basically this area here was where they created the markets because they wanted to of course you have to have like the market area, the commercial area, and then a Byzantine emperor or just someone from the Byzantine Empire visited the caliph who lived here. He was like the guy, he was like the emperor basically of the Islamic people. And he said, "How can you have the market so close to your palace? Because don't you know, like, you have all kinds of foreign people coming into your city. You don't know if they're going to be spies or they're going to do another rebellion like you did. Like, you don't know who these people are. And so I'm very surprised, like, of your bravery." And then when the ambassador left, or the emperor, or whoever he was from the Romans, the caliph realized that he was probably right. So he moved all the marketplace outside of the city. So you didn't have all these foreigners coming into the city. And the city was more protected from any kind of spies or even rebellious people coming from who knows where. They could all be outside of the walls, outside of the moat this way. And by moving the market outside, this also helped create whole different neighborhoods and like centers and things like that of Baghdad. So that is about the creation of Baghdad. Does anyone have any questions or comments or anything? I want to come back and see you all. Okay. Oh, welcome,
I
Ellen and Amy. Hello.
I have one
Yes, go
question.
ahead.
Do you
Yeah.
know anything about the sewage system that they had?
Hmm. Yeah, so things like waste in general, for Islam, it's very important, like cleanliness is very, very important. So this is something that I researched before, but I don't remember the entire thing. But they definitely had systems to keep the city clean. Um, it wouldn't be like some I feel bad for saying this, but it wouldn't be like some Indian city where they just throw all the pollution and stuff in the canals. They wouldn't accept that. They definitely had cleaner systems of like waste control, whether it be trash or, for example, they didn't allow the tanneries or the butcheries or places where there was a lot of like dead stuff. They didn't allow that next to the where people lived because obviously like that would be unhealthy. So they really cared a lot about this kind of stuff. And because Baghdad was a new city, they could control where that stuff was. Like it wouldn't happen, it wouldn't pop up naturally. So they did have systems in place, but I don't know what those systems were specifically for sewage, for example. But they did care a lot about this kind of stuff. For example, um, they had like uh, barrels. I don't know what they were made out of, but let's just say barrels. And in these barrels, they would keep incense burning in them, just on the street, so it would smell nice. Like they really cared about this kind of stuff. And they put flowers everywhere to be nice, and um, they really cared about this kind of stuff much more, I think, than Western people care about this kind of, like you wouldn't go to uh, in California, you wouldn't go to Venice Beach or Santa Monica Pier and expect that people are putting like wanting to make a nice cultural experience of smelling nice. But for in Islam in general, but especially for Baghdad, they really had a lot of stuff like that to make the experience of being in the city something that was nice, something that was like living in a poem or something kind of like this.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, something very special for Baghdad. Um, they the lifestyle wasn't how we would imagine like a medieval city. Like they had hospitals, and there's a famous story about where the hospital was created, or where one of the main hospitals was created, where some guy took a piece or pieces of raw meat and he put them all over the city. And wherever whatever raw meat didn't become bad, like it became the least bad, that's where he built the hospital because that's where he felt the air would be the healthiest. Like if it's not going to destroy the meat, it won't destroy the people either. So there was lots of this kind of care put into where things were and how things were organized. And on a societal, like cultural level or societal level as well, there were things in place to stop sellers from cheating people. There were whole systems in place, and there was this whole idea of really trying to make a unified society that was nice to live in at the same time. So another example of this, they had platforms where people would go to the platforms and recite poetry. Like it sounds like some kind of utopia or something, but that was the idea, was to make something like that. And in the Golden Age, it really was like that. There was this culture of that. Are there any more questions or comments?
Yeah, I have a quick question. Just to come off of what you just said, I was kind of curious as to, and you may have mentioned this before, so forgive me if I'm re-asking this, but I'm kind of curious, where do you think the origin of this cleanliness in their culture and the religion came from? If you have,
Oh, I love that question, and I have no idea. I think that's a great question, though. This is something that you still see in Islam today. Like if you go to Turkey, like for example, when there was Corona in Turkey or COVID in Turkey, um, they I might be mixing things up. Anyway, there was some study about like hand sanitation or something like that, and Turkey was the cleanest country in the world when it came to hand sanitation because they're always putting a natural version of hand sanitizer called cologne on their hands to all the time, like on their hands, on their necks. Like you'll see Turkish men do this all the time, even now in Turkey. Um, it's part of the culture, but why? I don't know. But I see this all over the Islamic world. People, the cleanest food, cleanest hospitals, cleanest everything, cleanest houses. Uh, is it right? Right, Sabah. So Sabah is from the Middle East, and I've been to her house. It's very, very clean. It's the cleanest house I've ever been to.
Thank you.
Yes, yes.
I think
And same with the
I
food,
think
same with everything. It's there's something about I don't know if it's a Middle Eastern thing or is an Islamic thing. I think it's Islamic. You might
Mm.
even see this in
yes,
Malaysia, Indonesia, for example.
yeah, yes, I agree with you. It is Islamic things,
Yeah.
and even like there is something say like النظافة من الإيمان. To be clean, it's from the I don't know. It's like what is Iman, faith, maybe.
Yeah, to be holy, something like this. To
Exactly.
be clean is to be holy. Yeah.
Mm.
But I think it's a great question, and I never quite wondered why. But of course, there's a reason why. So, yeah. But not to go on a long tangent, but I know a little bit of Jewish history in Europe, where a lot of times the European people that weren't Jewish would blame the Jews for plagues because they didn't get sick like the other Europeans did, because they were also clean. And this comes from, I believe anyway, this comes from the Middle East, the Jewish culture coming from the Middle East. Because the Jewish people, they wash their hands 5 times a day, this kind of thing, which the other Europeans were not doing. So. Yeah, there's something, but I don't know exactly what. One more thing about the cleanliness. Uh, I want you to guess. I won't tell you yet. I want you to guess how many baths. These were called hammams, but I'll just say baths. Public bathhouses. I don't mean baths like inside of a private bathroom. I mean places where people would go. Maybe you could call them Turkish baths, but like bath houses where everyone went to wash themselves. How many do you think there were in Baghdad?
250.
More than 250.
1,000?
More.
Do you mean at its founding, when it was
Sorry?
started? Do you
Yeah,
mean
like
when?
in this golden age that we're talking about with the
How many
canals.
people live there?
Oh, that's a good question. More than 1 million.
Okay, so maybe, I don't know, 100,000?
Oh, yeah, this is the right idea. This is the right kind of number we should be thinking about. Uh, Supposedly 60,000 baths were in Baghdad. And basically, it's like this is a very strange comparison, but just imagine in a Western country like liquor stores. Like there's one on every corner, like same with hammams in Baghdad. So supposedly no one knew how many there were, but someone tried to count accurately and it became 60,000. And yeah, you don't see this so much in Baghdad today, but you do see this still in Turkey. In Turkey, you still have this culture of hammams, and ironically, they're called hammams in Turkey, but we call them in English Turkish bathhouses, um, which are like usually very beautiful. They look kind of like mosques. Like sometimes you could mistake them for mosques. They're like have domes and lots of light goes through, and people are washing themselves. And more importantly, they're gossiping, they're doing politics with each other, this kind of thing. I think you got the same thing actually in Asian cultures like China, like Japan, Korea. You have the same culture of uh, communal baths and like being together and talking and this kind of thing. And also with cleanliness in these kind of countries, they're often very clean, especially like Japan, Korea. Yeah.
I wanted to
Um,
say
yeah.
in the U.S. anyhow, among Christians, Christians will say cleanliness is next to godliness. So
Yes. Yeah.
so I'm thinking it must come from something other than a saying in Islam. Something else is going on probably.
Yeah, maybe.
I
Maybe.
think
I mean,
it's
sorry?
it's like to be healthy, like to be healthy. It's a part being healthy.
Yeah, yeah. And don't forget that Christianity also comes from the Middle East. And so maybe some of these things have transcended uh, religious borders as well. So yeah, you never know.
I have a question.
Yeah.
But just on that note, I think it's also fascinating that cleanliness. Oh, I'm so sorry. My mic.
Oh, no, no, I can hear you. No problem.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
was gonna say like it's also fascinating to see how, or in a ways, cleanliness can be an indicator of how developed a society is as well. Um,
Yeah.
mhm.
It's an interesting point. I don't know if that's all the way true or not. It totally depends on your definition of developed. Like, because I imagine people in Afghanistan still living in caves, for example, but washing before prayer 5 times a day, being cleaner than your average office worker in New York City, you know? So it depends, like, but is their culture like, even if they're living in a cave, is their culture more developed in some way? Or does it just, uh, being clean allows a sort of better state of mind? Like, who knows? So there might be something. I think I think a lot of people in Baghdad would have agreed with you because they wanted to make their city as clean as possible, as cultured as possible, as developed as possible. And I think being clean was a part of showing that they were as developed as they could be.
You're right. Yeah, I should have said my statement was a bit more of a generalization. I was thinking just in terms of like the golden eras of different civilizations. For example, like you brought up Japan, or I was also thinking about like the Pax Romana and the Roman baths. And you kind of see a lot of these public bathhouses when the civilization was like at its height, or the so-called golden age. But I know that there are a lot of nuances, and yeah, I'm not talking at the level of like personal hygiene.
Yeah,
But
yeah, totally.
thank you for clarifying that. And I do have another quick question, if time allows.
Of course,
And
yeah.
it's, when did the golden age of Baghdad end, and why?
Yeah, okay. That's a great segue. Let's go there right now. And then I'll come back a little bit to the more Golden Age part because we haven't even reached that part. But let's talk about the end of the Golden Age and just go backwards. Um, but I want to share my screen again. So let's see. It's been 20 minutes. I forgot everything to do anything. Oh, here we go. Share. And probably for a second, you're all going to see yourselves. Okay. Are you able to see my screen right now? Excellent. All right. So we talked about the creation of Baghdad and then like basically what it was like in the Golden Age. We didn't talk about the history or politics, which are very, very complicated, but I can simplify if we have time. But let's get through all this Golden Age stuff and get to the end. So the end is very obvious. Like there's a definite end of the Golden Age, unlike a lot of histories of cities or peoples. And I just want to get to the right year here. So this is what happens. The Mongols is what happens to Baghdad. And I believe, let's see, sometime in the 1200s, like 1257, I'm guessing. Okay, technically 1258, January 1258. That's the end. That's the end of Baghdad. Before, it was still in the Golden Age, although there was definitely a decline. But the Mongols completely destroyed Baghdad, completely. They didn't only destroy the city, they destroyed all the histories that were written. They destroyed all the books, all the scrolls, they killed all the people. Um, they filled in all the canals. Anything you can imagine that made Baghdad what it was, the Mongols destroyed it. This wasn't Genghis Khan, by the way. It was his grandson, which I always forget his name. Hulagu. So, as long as we're talking about this, I'll talk a little bit about how it ended, and then we'll go back to a nicer time, back to the Golden Age. But basically, Hulagu was the grandson of Genghis Khan, and he gave a warning. He actually warned the caliph at the time that he was coming and that the caliph should fill in the moat of Baghdad and either come himself or bring like some representative of him and just surrender the city, and that would be enough. But I'm sure all of you know the reputation of the Mongols. So this was probably a pretty good deal, but it was probably kind of scary at the time. But Al Mustasim probably. This was the caliph at the time. And at this point, the caliphs have kind of or the rulers, which were called caliphs, they had basically degraded over time. That started off with these really amazing caliphs that still live in the imagination of Arab literature to this day, to these just really weak buffoon kind of people. And honestly, this caliph was one of those really weak buffoon kind of people. And he said to Halu, Hulagu Khan, he said to him, if you touch Baghdad, the whole Arab world will come and save me, and you'll regret it forever. And you're also very stupid, or like something kind of like that. Actually, on this website that I made, I put the whole correspondence here between them, because it's really interesting to see somehow this correspondence survived. And it's just so interesting to see how wrong, how like it was. Some people say this was the worst mistake in all of human history of what the Caliph said to Hulagu. And Hulagu was just kind of surprised, but he had the power to just completely wipe Baghdad off the map. Um, and he did, and Baghdad, everything that we're talking about, the canals and flowers, and it was all even the round city plan, just everything was gone completely. There was nothing left of Baghdad because of this, and Baghdad retained this the name Baghdad retained the prestige of being an intellectual and cultural capital. But when people would visit Baghdad after it had been destroyed by Hulagu, they were shocked to find that almost no one lived there. Everything was gone. There was no hint of this cultural history anymore. And I think we'll talk about that in another lecture. And to see, I think it's interesting to see how far the name of a place can really build it back up. But on that note, let's talk a little bit about, I'm looking at the time. Actually, my computer's battery is low. Let me get the power for a second. So I really wanted to talk about who came after the first caliph of the Abbasids and the man who created Baghdad. Uh, but I think I want to talk a little bit about the idea of Baghdad first, because the idea of Baghdad was what kept Baghdad in its golden age for so long. Because a lot of times you have like a golden age and maybe it lasts like 50, it lasts like a generation, basically. And then things become more corrupt or the circumstances change or there's a better place later. But because Baghdad was a center of culture and it was so strongly a center of culture, its name gave it a kind of prestige that when it declined, which it did many times within this golden age period, it was able to come back because people wanted it to come back, because people believed that all they had to do was make it nice again and it would become nice, which is kind of what happened. Kind of like the idea of Rome. Like it's very hard to shake off the ideals of what Rome is. And that's basically what Baghdad was too. So Rome also went through many difficult times and bounced back a lot during those times. And Baghdad did the same. So if we have time, you'll see it decline, and then someone will pop back up and just build everything again and make it all nice again. And then it'll decline more, and then they'll make it all nice again. It'll go through these periods of that before the Mongols came. I'm trying to find who. So okay, you have this guy Al-Mansur, and he was basically the creator of Baghdad and the one who was like the father or grandfather of everything. After him was Al-Mahdi, who it's very unfortunate for Al-Mahdi because after him was this really, really fantastical guy named Huran, maybe Rosalind or Sabah, you can correct my pronunciation.
Could you repeat again?
Is it Harun al-Rashid? Harun?
Harun.
Harun. Okay, thank you. Harun.
Yes, welcome.
Harun. This is Harun over here. But a lot of the Golden Age, a lot of Al-Mahdi was responsible for a lot of the Golden Age. And there, because of Harun, Harun kind of overshadows him, and this guy gets no recognition. But he was the caliph for 10 years after Al-Mansur. I can't remember if this was his son or not, but I think it might have been his son. And he really uh, made Baghdad better than his father. Like he really built on it and really made it very nice. But after him, I don't know if this was his son or the relation, but there was this guy Al-Hadi, and Al-Hadi was the brother of Harun. Um, and Al-Hadi was kind of powder keg. He was very smart, but there he was like, I don't know, he didn't work out. Some people even say his mother ordered his death because he insulted her or like something weird like that. No one knows why he didn't last that long, but he didn't work out basically. And his brother took over, and this is Harun. So even today, Harun is extremely famous. For example, I was watching a Syrian comedy show a couple months ago, and it showed there was like a sketch about Harun. And Harun, he was in he's not in the historic Harun, he was the caliph of Baghdad and the Abbasid Empire. But Harun transcends past his historical place, and he is like a mythical figure as well. Like he was so influential in history that he also became like a mythical figure. So there's lots and lots of like 1001 Night stories about Harun, lots of myths, lots of jokes, lots of like everyone in the Arab world knows Harun. Is this true, Rosalind?
Yes, this is true.
Rosalind is from Syria, so and look, this guy's from Baghdad and still in Iraq, and still Rosalind knows Harun. I didn't know Harun at all, but Rosalind for sure knows about yeah. So like for example, I was watching a Syrian TV show, and automatically it showed this guy, and automatically you're supposed to know this is Harun, and he was like a desert Bedouin kind of guy, like not the historical figure. And there's a whole comedy thing where he goes to Damascus and wanders the streets in Damascus and gets pulled over by the police, by the modern police, and goes to prison and becomes the king of the prison. And it's like all a joke because you know who Harun was to begin with. Even now, if you don't know any history, like you'll know Harun. But Harun was a real guy, and he and his best friend uh, named Jafar, and there's no it's not a mistake that in Aladdin, in like the Disney Aladdin, the guy's name is Jafar. Uh, Jafar was Harun, like that's who Jafar was. He was like the vizier, which is kind of like the president. If Harun was the prime minister, Jafar would be the president, and they were like best friends. In reality, Jafar was not an evil guy, by the way. Jafar is the one that brought poetry to Baghdad and financed the arts and sciences of Baghdad. Him and his family called the Barmakids, maybe Barmakids. Um, so Harun was from the Abbasid family, and then the Barmakids were like the Rothschilds or like really, really rich dynasty of people. And together, Harun and Jafar were unstoppable. They went on many adventures together. Harun loved to be the leader um, of battles, and I chose this picture of Harun because it's so ridiculous. Like it's so funny to me. The standards of or the cultural styles. Like this is a style that happened after the Mongols and like this Persian style, and it shows this very like what is the English word? I want to say nazik, but a very like pretty boy kind of person. And if you watch a Arabic TV show about Harun, he's like this like big, muscular, fat, giant man who can like Hercules, like just grab a tree with his hand and break it in half. Like this is so I think this image is really funny because it shows what the ideals were at the time that this painting was made. So Harun could be many things for many people, but the general idea of Harun was he was this very, very masculine man. I think he had a legendary wife named Zanube. Maybe Rosalind can correct me or Sabah.
Nubia.
Zanubia, thank
Zubaida.
you.
Zubaida.
Oh,
Zubaida.
Zubaida. Yes, Zubaida. Yeah, Zubaida. This is right. So he had a legendary love affair with Zubaida. They were like no one was more in love than Harun and Zubaida. But at the same time, he also had 200 concubines. Like he was super masculine, he was super rich, he was super powerful, and Jafar was his best friend and just as crazy and rich and went on many adventures. He was known for walking the streets of Baghdad at night, like just to see his city. And he had all these night journeys in Baghdad. This was like his thing was the night walk. And he'd always walk with Jafar, and they were inseparable, and they were like best friends from birth. And then one day, no one knows what happened, but one day, Harun ordered the death of Jafar. And there's a whole story like the servant he ordered the death of Jafar for. The servant thought he was like joking or didn't understand what was going on. And Harun basically had to say, "No, I will kill you, and then I will kill Jafar if you don't kill Jafar." And no one really knows why he killed Jafar, but it happened. It's a real thing that happened in history. And then after he killed Jafar, he went after his whole family, his whole I don't mean like his wife and children, I mean the whole family of the Barmakids, and made them disappear basically from power, from wealth, from all of that. And no one really knows what happened, how like what is the story? But of course, there's many, many stories. One story is that Harun and Jafar, they loved to have parties. And yes, they were Muslim. And actually, Harun, he's the caliph. He's the head of the whole Muslim, not just the Muslim empire, but the Muslim religion as well, like the Pope would be or someone like that. But still, he was a manly man and he drank alcohol, like so much wine all the time. Baghdad was actually famous for wine because the Christians would make it and probably the Jews too. And yeah, so Harun and Jafar would have these wild parties where there was a lot of poetry, a lot of art, and they would get really, really drunk, and everyone loved to be at the parties. And apparently, Harun's sister wanted to also be at these amazing parties, but because she wasn't married, she wasn't allowed to go to the party. Like as a single woman, this would be forbidden. So Harun married her to Jafar, but only on paper, like not in reality. And he told Jafar, you can't sleep with her. This is just so that she can join us and like hang out with us at the party. And apparently, like the story is that Jafar slept with her, and then that's what made him mad. But there are a million stories about why Harun went after Jafar. No one knows. No one knows why this happened. But it is a pattern that I see in history. It's not just, this isn't just a one-off. I can think of almost 1,000 years later with Sultan Suleiman. He had his best friend, Ibrahim, and it was the same situation. There was the Sultan and the Vizier. And Ibrahim was basically almost as powerful as Sultan. And there were just there's so much power games and so many people telling the Sultan, like they wanted Ibrahim's power basically. And so they would tell Sultan, Ibrahim wants to kill you. Ibrahim is bad. Then after like 20 years, 30 years of this, Sultan finally just kills Ibrahim. So it could be something like that. Like, yeah, they were inseparable, but maybe there are a lot of people that were jealous of the Barmakids in general and wanted their power, wanted their prestige instead of them, and finally convinced Harun through lots of rumors and things like this and lies, gossip that his friend Jafar betrayed him in some way. Um, but yeah, and when Harun killed Jafar, it wasn't like in a nice way. Like he put his body on the bridge, one of the bridges of these of the Tigris River for 2 years and let it sit as a warning to who I don't know, but like he was really really angry with Jafar for whatever reason. And people say that's the real end of the Golden Age. So there's like two ends. One is the end of like there's a rising, and the end of that rising is when Harun killed Jafar, because then there were no more amazing parties and the arts were no longer funded as much and things like that. And Harun also became crazy, as rulers do as they grow older. Although he did die kind of young. I think he died at 45 or 47 in some military campaign. But the after Harun, like you can't really compare anyone else to Harun. So it's very unfair to say after Harun, the sultans weren't as good. But it's also true. What happened after Harun when he died, there was a civil war between his children, and it was the first time there was a civil war in Baghdad. And that wasn't any good for Baghdad. But still, in the time of the Civil War, there was still lots of art, lots of science, lots of amazing developments, and the not just creating new things, but also preserving the things that were being lost by the former Roman Empire. Like a lot of the Greek science and a lot of the Greek philosophy and stories and things like that, we know them now because of Baghdad, because of they valued these things, and after time, scrolls and things like that, they become bad, they disintegrate, things like that. So you always need to recopy them. So because of the people that were copying them and recopying them in Baghdad, a lot of these things survive until now. And if it wasn't for Baghdad, our knowledge of the ancient world and this kind of stuff would be, we wouldn't have this knowledge anymore. Who knows if we would even be able to talk on Zoom without the knowledge that was preserved originally in Baghdad. So we have about 10 minutes more. Does anyone have any questions or comments or anything?
Yeah, I have a question. So I've heard about the golden age of Islam and the preservation of the Greek and Roman texts that then came back into Europe during the Renaissance. But was it primarily Baghdad, or was there a broader golden age of Islam where Greek and Roman texts were preserved?
I think that's a really good question. It's slightly beyond my scope of knowledge. I know that, for example, as most of you know, there's also the Library of Alexandria, and they were doing similar stuff in the Library of Alexandria. But Baghdad was something unique, and there was a golden age of Baghdad, and there was also a golden age of Islam. And these are two different things. Like Baghdad, yes, it was the center of the world, but there were times that we probably don't have time for right now, but you will see Baghdad still has the prestige, but is no longer the center of the world anymore. And the Islamic Golden Age continues in other places where the Mongols didn't touch. For example, in Libya. Libya was a really big place for it's the history is so deep, but a lot of like Jews from Spain came to Libya, and there was they worked with Muslims, and there was like the Golden Age continued because of that. but Baghdad had its own kind of Library of Alexandria. In English, you can call it the House of Wisdom. And the House of Wisdom was a library where they stored everything that I was just talking about, but they also did a lot of science themselves. They also improved upon the texts that they were copying with scientific instruments like astrolabes and these complicated globe things. They had a really cool water clock. So water can be a constant source of energy, and people made these water clocks based off of, and then they could time them very uh, perfectly by using water rather than relying on, I don't know, the sun or guessing or something like that. So, for example, algebra came from Baghdad. Like these kind of things came from the House of Wisdom. And I just don't know enough about these other places like the Library of Alexandria to make a comparison. But Baghdad really was a special place for a while when it came to knowledge and science. Like now we have Silicon Valley, and sure, there's places in China, there's places in Europe that also do technological stuff, and they also make discoveries and things like that. But Silicon Valley is something a little bit special, and you could compare Baghdad to Silicon Valley in that way. Any more questions or comments? I think I think this is a good place because if I continue, I'll just talk about like another few years more of history, and uh, it's more interesting when you have that history in context. So I won't talk about the history or anything anymore, but does anyone have any questions or comments before I close, um, or any thoughts about all this?
I do.
Yeah, sure.
I mean, first of all, I want to say thank you so much for this lecture. It was so fascinating and I learned so much. And I really, really hope you do another one soon.
I will. I decided to do these once a month, so I will continue in about a month, maybe 1 week less, 1 week more, something like this. But yeah,
Okay, I
thank you so
see.
much.
Well, I would
Yeah.
love to come back like my schedule allows. And I also apologize for asking you to like jump ahead to like the end of Baghdad's golden age. So sorry to like, throw you off if I did.
No, I think that history is better taught in a different way, in the way that you moved me. I'm very happy to teach history where you have like you can go back, you can go forward, and this way you can see things in a little bit different way rather than first there was this, then there was this, then there was this, and it becomes kind of monotonous. But yeah, I think I'm happy that we did it this way.
Would you email us again about upcoming events that you will be hosting?
Yeah, I wanted to ask. So I did email everyone last time.
Yeah.
Did you get that email that I sent?
Yes.
Excellent. Okay, so now I know how to send it. So in the upcoming week, I will find a good date and then I will send you a link to the third part. And of course, as always, it will be free. And if you have any questions or any thoughts or anything, you're totally welcome to bring them up for the next lesson as well.
Well,
So
thank you.
yeah,
Thank you
Thank you
very
so
much.
much. Thank
you're
you.
welcome.
Thank
You're
you so
welcome.
much.
And really, thank you so much. I really enjoyed this. I enjoyed researching for it. And yeah, and we say in Arabic, inshallah, I hope, like I will see you again.
I
Inshallah.
also want to
Thank
I
you.
also want to say something.
Yes, go ahead.
So thank you so much for this lesson. It's really good, and there are a lot of information that I didn't know about them, and I only like studied when I was a child in primary school and then high school. So like there are a lot of information that I don't know about them, and I just learned them from you. So thank you so much.
You're welcome. I'm so happy to hear this. You're welcome. All right.
Zakaria, thank you so much. I have, I know every this information, but I have forget.
Yeah, I understand. Me too. I have to research one day before because I research it all and then I forget. Yeah, I understand.
But
All right.
thank you very much.
You're welcome. You're welcome. And I hope everyone has a good day or a good night, depending on where you are. And inshallah, I will see you in 1 month.
Okay, see you.
Inshallah.